12 days to go and shit's getting weird. The stake starts now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Stakes. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is the Michelle Kinney, and we are the co-founders of the Seneca Project. Thank you for hanging out with us on this Thursday night, 12 days before the election ends. And like I said, things are getting weird. There's a lot happening. Mercury feels like it's in retrograde perpetually.
It is, girl. I don't even know that I believe in that stuff, but this week I have become a believer. I'm a believer. It doesn't these things are broken. People don't show up, and I don't have the right parts for something. I drop burrata all over my kitchen. It's just Mercury. Go away. Go away.
Know. It's a lot. We're literally talking about Hitler,
girl,
and spankings. And Arnold Palmer's manhood size, there's a lot. There's a lot, folks. We're going to talk about all of it because last week we were not live because we re-aired our epic fundraising event with Mark Hamill and Tony Shalhoub and Alex Borstein. And we really appreciate everyone who supported us. Thank you so much. Just continue. We can still use that fundraising boost toward this end here. We've still got great content we'd love to produce and place, especially with what's happened in the last week. We have a new ad coming out that we're putting the finishing touches on now called American Girl. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be out in the next day or two. We also have another ad that we really, really want to make called Commander in Chief. And if we raise enough money, we will. So that's up to you guys. We're hoping that folks will continue to support us so that we have the money to make that ad. It's especially in light of the comments this week from General Kelly and Mark Milley and all of those guys that worked so closely with Donald Trump, confirming what we all have already really known. But it's about time they actually went on record, especially General Kelly, because he was the longest serving chief of staff. He was the DHS Secretary of Homeland Security. He spent more time intimately with Donald Trump than his own family, for sure more than Melania, because she was never around. So John Kelly was there through all of it. And for him to finally go on record, I mean, I feel like it's about damn time, but I guess if you're going to do it, now would be the time. Confirming it all, that Donald Trump legit has a hard-on for Hitler and his generals.
Wasn't it Ivana who said that he used to keep Mein Kampf on his bedside table?
That is correct.
Right? I mean, this is not a new thing. This is not, he became president and was just jonesing for some more power. This has been something I think that's part of his entire persona, his personality, his brain. I think that the thought of power consumes him, whether it be in business or whether it be with women. He likes to grab them and not ask for permission.
Another new accuser this week, by the way. We'll get to that in a second.
But yeah, I mean, and just to say, I went to go see the Apprentice film.
Yeah, that's right.
On Friday. And first of all, I just want to say the performances were incredible.
I want to see it.
Blown away. I was completely blown away.
I'm a big fan of Jeremy Strong. Everybody knows that from Kendall from Succession.
So good. He was so good. It's interesting. I think there was parts of it that humanized him a bit more than I was anticipating. But there was a lot there that kind of explained and it showed a different side of him that brought him to who he is now. Because this really does take place mostly in the 80s.
Right.
When he's with Ivana and is being groomed, if you will, by the late Roy Cohn.
Horrible person.
Horrible man. And it was, I recommend everybody go see it. Don't go see it with your parents or anything. There's like some raunchy stuff in it, but don't bring your kids either. But I think it's worth watching. If it's playing in a theater near you, go see The Apprentice.
Yes. And also, it puts in perspective for people who didn't grow up in the New York area. Like
Yeah.
you and I, we grew up here and
Right.
there, and it's like, this isn't news really because
Right.
we were kids, but you still saw the
Yeah.
tabloids and the lore of Donald Trump.
Yes.
Getting into the more seedy side of him, and then
Mhm.
seeing how, reading Mary Trump's book, about
Right.
his childhood and him growing up,
Oh,
and then,
yeah.
listening to his biographers, Tony Schwartz, who wrote The Art of the Deal, like,
Who's
looking at it
was
all now.
featured in the film as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, he actually talked about, how he recently he got an email from the actor who portrayed him, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
he asked, like, "Did I do a good job?" And he
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
"Well,
yeah.
you actually dressed better than I did." I
Ah,
back
funny.
then.
That's so
But
funny.
anyway, yeah. So, like, it really does kind of put it all together now in a different lens
It
now that
does.
Donald Trump actually became president of the United States, which is just still mind-blowing every year.
Exactly. And Gabe Sherman wrote the screenplay. Now, if you're not familiar with Gabe Sherman's work, he is a journalist. He wrote The Loudest Voice in the Room about Roger Ailes at Fox News.
Yeah.
So he's not somebody who's going to really embellish too much. I think he really was going for a lot, as much fact as he possibly could from any source possible. So with all that said, it's, I think that they got it right. And he's not just the Donald Trump that we all know in New York. He's the Donald Trump that we all grew to hate.
Yes. Yes. And even Michael Cohen said it was the most accurate depiction
Yes.
that he's ever seen of Trump and who he really
Mhm.
is. So I'm still anxious to go see it. I just have not had the time yet.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
it's yeah, I was in San Francisco last week, and it was there. I spoke at the Commonwealth Club. Then we did the fundraiser, and it's just been a lot. It's been a lot going on. We've been making
listen.
content and trying to save our democracy and galvanize women here. So I will make it out to the theater. I do want to see it.
Yeah.
But it goes again, it all ties back into this fetish that
Mhm.
he has with fascists. And
Mhm.
the fact that the media, I mean, they're talking about it, but it's almost like an afterthought again.
Yeah.
This week I was moderating a panel down at UVA, with Maria Cardona, who's on our advisory
Mm.
board, and another UVA scholar, David Ramadan, who was a former Republican.
Mm.
He quit the party too in protest over Trump. But we were talking about October surprises because that's the political thing to talk about in October.
Right.
And like, do they even exist anymore? And we were like, not really, because
No.
every day is an October freaking surprise with this guy.
There
And
are there's huge stories that don't even break through, that in, like, even 10 years ago would
I know.
have taken up a news cycle for a month.
Yes, yes. Like 20 years ago, George Bush's DUI from the 1970s
God, you
was
remember I
deemed
remember
an
that.
October surprise. Like, it was
Yeah.
like, gasp.
Oh,
But
no, a DUI.
today, that's a
34 counts of felon, rapist, what else,
yeah, we got another accuser that came out. A former Sports Illustrated swimsuit model was dating
Yep.
Jeffrey Epstein in 1993, and he basically brought her to Trump, and they
Mhm.
groped her and did what Trump does, like what he brags about doing, just grabbing women. And Epstein was there, and she finally came out and said, like, it was like a sick game between the two of
Yep.
them. They got off on it, and it felt coordinated. She broke up with Epstein, thankfully, very shortly after that. But it took her 30 years to speak out.
Yeah.
And I have to say, earlier this evening, I was watching CNN, and Brian Lanza was on. And if folks
Ugh.
follow me, they know that I've been up against him on
Okay.
CNN panels in the past and basically snatched his soul from him while he was sitting next to me,
That guy.
because he's
Mm-mm.
just such a hack. And he doesn't believe a damn word of it. And
Oh
it's
gosh,
obvious. You
no.
can just see it on his face, but he's a hack and getting paid well to do it, like most of them. Anyway, he was on with Alencia Johnson, who's a Harris campaign surrogate and an advisor. And he just did all the typical tropes of what men do when they want to attack women accusers. Oh, why did she wait so long? Oh, how convenient.
That's always
it's 2
the
weeks.
thing.
Yeah.
Why did they wait so long? Why did she stay?
And she can't remember the dates or anything. There's no nuances or details. And, it's 2 weeks before an election. I mean, please, this is a fake story and blah, blah, blah. And Alencia
anything to discredit. Anything to discredit.
Yes, but it's all the same tropes.
Every
and Alencia she's been open about being a survivor of sexual assault. And she was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you do this? You know, that's what's wrong with you people. You don't trust women. You don't believe women. And listen, do you hear yourself? Shame on you.
Shame
and
on
it's
you.
like, and this is what they do. And unfortunately, it's another shrug. It's a shrug. It's like, yeah, well,
it's just, they're like, oh,
of course, for Donald.
Yeah, Trump is Trump. Trump's, he's an asshole. He's not a nice guy. We all know he touches women. And it's like,
so what? Doesn't matter.
Van Jones, and I didn't pull this clip. I wish I had. Van Jones last night after the town hall on CNN said something that I thought was so on point. He said, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are not taking the same test.
Yep.
Because some of the other panelists, which I will not name, said, oh, she did okay tonight, but she didn't seal the deal. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Kamala Harris is an extremely brilliant, accomplished woman who is currently the vice president of the United States and has only been in this race for 3 months. Okay. She's getting better every day. Not everyone comes out of the womb being able to articulate and, put every idea into these brilliant sentences. I think she does a really good job. Some people don't think she does. I think it's crazy that she's being held to a different standard when Donald Trump is getting on stage and saying, oh, I do the weave. See, I go from thing to thing. And I'm like, no, you have ADD. That's like very different. And you're losing your mind.
And he can't put a complete sentence together, for God's sake. There's fragments.
Right. It's like, but Van Jones said, he said, Trump gets to be lawless, but Kamala has to be flawless.
Yes.
And I thought that was just so perfectly said.
Yes.
And Van Jones sometimes drives me a little bonkers. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, what's the same?
Be a little wishy-washy.
I think he's great, but
that was a good one. That was
very, very good.
That was a gem that because he's also the one that said that one time that Donald Trump became president of the United States, presidential is on this night, and it was like, man, seriously. There's never been a moment Donald Trump has been presidential ever, ever, ever. In fact, it's been the complete opposite. He's done nothing but completely shit on the presidency and embarrass it and make a mockery of what the dignity of the presidency is, and continues to. And continues to. He hates this country. I say it all the time. The irony of his phrase, make America great again, which he took from Reagan, is that he actually despises everything that makes America great, including our military. He has done nothing but disparage the military, make fun of them, and go after Gold Star families, make fun of John McCain for getting captured. They're suckers and losers. We've been repeating this for years because guess what? It was John Kelly who said it, but he didn't go on the record. But now he's on the record and confirmed it. And John Kelly is a 4-star general. He's a Gold Star father. He lost his son. And Donald Trump has called him a degenerate, a loser, dumb. He's a liar. All the things that he is, once again,
always
projecting.
Did you see? So Barack Obama gave a great speech in Detroit. Eminem was on stage. It was awesome. And then after the fact, Donald Trump was like, did you see him? He looks exhausted. I'm like,
it's the Pee Wee Herman. I know you are, but
right. And then he said Kamala Harris is sleeping all day. She's like, and I'm like, bro, that's you.
Yeah, that's him all the time. Projection all the time. And
Projector in chief.
It's true. It's so absurd. But he does it, and his crowd eats it up because they live in a completely different world than we do. And here's an example. Another one of our illustrious advisors, Professor and historian Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who we had on as a guest a couple weeks ago. Yes. He is our go-to expert on fascism and authoritarianism. She wrote a great book called Strong Men. And she was talking about how women are seen as an enemy of the state in authoritarianism and how we are targeted in that that structure, that construct, and we should be very concerned about that.
Yes.
And she was slated to give a lecture at the Naval Academy, and it's a distinguished honorable lecture series that they do there. And the right-wing media, the right-wing ecosystem flipped out, and led by the Heritage Foundation and the Project 2025 people, and they got the Naval Academy to pull her invite. She was disinvited because they claimed that she was too political and that the academies or the military academies are not supposed to be engaged in political activity. She was supposed to talk about what happens, what's happened in history when you have an authoritarian regime and the military.
And it's them who's projecting their own ideas of what that means onto what she's going to say. Because she even said, now, and going back to the fact that Tara just said, we're living in different universes. This happened 3 weeks ago.
And we just found out this morning.
Everyone's talking about it on Twitter today. And we know Ruth. I mean, we don't talk to her all the time because she's busy and we're busy, whatever. But we didn't even know about this.
No.
And I saw it this morning and I was like, Tara, oh my God, did you see this?
Yeah. And I was like,
that it was so long ago.
Is this?
3 weeks.
3 weeks ago. And when I Googled it and I reached out to Ruth and I found out that this started October 2nd. She was supposed to give the lecture on the 10th. It is October 24th. And we're just hearing about this. Why? Because there's an ecosystem on the other side that is not living on the same planet. It really isn't. I mean, we know this, but sometimes we forget what an alternate universe this is. Another example, and we put out a statement in support of Ruth, and I encourage everyone to go on Twitter. You can read it. Also, we posted it on our website. And if you are on Twitter, please support Ruth and let the folks know that what they're doing here is not democratic. Okay. Silencing our voices about history and facts. That's not democratic. Okay. So, shame on the Naval Academy for acquiescing to that bullshit. But this is another example. Michelle and I were talking earlier today about Arnold Palmer. How many folks know what Trump said over the weekend about Arnold Palmer? Well, if you watch Fox News, chances are you didn't know because they edited it out. Just like they edited out the enemy within comments that Trump has been making about how he would take the military and go after his political opponents, American citizens like Nancy Pelosi and her husband and Adam Schiff and us or whom the hell ever. I mean, he wants to, could be, because they're political opponents. And his acolytes tried to say, no, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. And then he was asked again to clean it up. And he was like, no. Yeah, I'm talking about Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi. Like they keep trying to cover for him. It's embarrassing. And then he just
come on, you didn't mean it, right? And he's like, no, I did.
No, I did. And he tripled down on it again this morning. But he went off these last weekend about Arnold Palmer's dingling and how the size of it for 10 minutes during the opening of one of his rallies last weekend. It was so inappropriate and weird and just disgusting and creepy. Even Arnold Palmer's daughter came out and was like, my father would be horrified by this.
I feel actually really bad. Like that anytime anyone Googles Arnold Palmer for the rest of time, this is going to come up.
This is going to come up.
Yeah.
But Kamala Harris didn't seal the deal last night because she won. Because she didn't give a specific answer about what percentage she's going to change in grocery prices, for God's sakes. This is absurd. The standard, they're holding Kamala Harris up to a normal political candidate standard in a normal time, like pre-Donald Trump. We don't live in those times. We live in the time of a presidential candidate who is talking about praising Hitler's generals, for fuck's sake. Hitler. But that's a shrug. But Kamala Harris. This is but her emails. It is so insane to me. But if you watch Fox News, you wouldn't know any of this. You were telling me about your friend's dad that was golfing over the weekend, and he's a Fox News viewer, right? And he asked him, like, did you hear about this?
Yeah, so my friend is from Milburn, New Jersey, which is like 40 minutes from New York City.
Right down the Parkway.
Yeah, and he's like, he said, I was talking to my dad, and he said, my dad might have voted for Trump or that. I have no idea. And I don't think that it's one of those things we don't talk about it.
Yeah, don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah. So, And he said, so I asked my dad, who had gone golfing that weekend, and said, did you and your friends at golf this weekend talk about the Arnold Palmer thing? And his dad was like, what are you talking about? And he said, Trump and the Arnold Palmer comment about his genitals. His dad was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, this was like 3 days after it had happened. And it's because his dad watches Fox News and they didn't talk about it at all.
At all.
At all.
Yep.
And because they don't talk about it, it doesn't exist to these people. Because the algorithm also on the internet continues to feed us the same information, and we get into these echo chambers. And, I think that there's a lot of good that has come from the internet, obviously. But this is one of the darkest sides of all of it, is what it has done to us as a society, as a country, as citizens of the world, really. But
100%.
Yeah. And I'm assuming probably everybody here has seen the Arnold Palmer clip, but if we haven't, I have it.
I mean,
might as well.
Why not?
But Arnold Palmer was all man. And I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. But this is a guy that was all man. This man was strong and tough. And I refuse to say it, but when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable. I had to say it. We have women that are highly sophisticated here.
I can't. I just can't. And there's been a weird dichotomy here in a conversation within MAGA world. And during the panel on Monday down at UVA, we talked about this because David Ramadan still talks to some folks. He's from Virginia and he was a state delegate here in Virginia. And he still has friends in the party. And Chris LaCivita, who is Trump's co-campaign manager with Susie Wiles, was a big operative in Virginia. So David still talks to MAGA world. And he was saying to them, casually, and he was saying to them, you guys think this is going to work with women? What are you doing? You just basically written them off because you were talking about how it's just this big bro fest now. And they actually believe that there are women who like this. They like this. And maybe there are. But they damn sure aren't the women who are going to make the decision in this election. Maybe there are. Maybe there are those MAGA women that like this sick.
Yeah, maybe these trad wives or something. But
that's not the majority of women.
No.
And I think this is a gross miscalculation on their part. But they're leaning into this. And
it's
Donald
predatory.
Trump, it is. And I was just about to lead.
Predatory.
I was just about to say, let's remind people that Donald Trump is not a protector. He's a predator. And we made this to remind folks.
I always thought women liked me.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want. Grab them by the pussy.
I make this statement to the great women.
Questionable comments about a young girl.
You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
I am your protector.
Carol opening her testimony today saying, quote, I'm here because Donald Trump raped me.
I want to be your protector.
5 former Miss Teen USA contestants told BuzzFeed that Trump did in fact walk in on them while they were changing.
And so I sort of get away with things like that.
You will no longer be abandoned, lonely, or scared.
Donald held back Ivana's arms and began to pull out fistfuls of hair from her scalp.
You're not going to be in danger any longer.
I turned around and I see Donald standing there. I'm thinking, this son of a bitch just grabbed me.
Women will be happy, healthy, confident, and free.
Trump called Epstein a terrific guy, adding, it is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
You will no longer be thinking about abortion.
They're gonna just let me bleed out here.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
You will be protected, and I will be your protector. Women.
I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade. I got rid of Roe v. Wade. Killing Roe v. Wade.
That video could have been 10 minutes long.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, I mean, because, you know, I do manage a lot of the content and help develop it and everything.
Which is why you are chief creative.
That is true. That is true. And I've seen that probably like, I don't know, at this point, like 50 times, I don't know. And every single time I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
I'm like, and you know, Tara and I were talking about this briefly today after a conversation I had with a friend. You know, I jumped into this fight, you know, head first after the 2016 election. I had a lot of friends at the Javits Center waiting for Hillary to come out, and she never did. And the camera pans over the crowd and women are crying. And I remember those videos making their way onto right-wing media, and everybody was laughing at them. Look at these like stupid women, right?
Yep.
I remember I was at a friend's house on the Upper West Side, and 9:15 rolled around, and I didn't seem like they were really paying attention. And all of a sudden they were calling, and he just kept winning. My husband looked at me and he was like, "We need to go, and we need to go now." Yeah. We walked home.
It was such a terrible night.
I sat on my couch and I bawled my eyes out. And I stayed up until he accepted the election results. Well, because he won.
Yeah.
And
one time.
One time. And I took a picture of my face. I have it on my phone still because I said to myself, I never want to forget what this felt like. And there's a reason we were all crying that night. And we were devastated. And it's, yes, people on my side, we wanted Hillary to win, obviously. But it's that she lost to him.
Right.
And what we knew about him. The Access Hollywood tape had just come out the week before.
No, I know.
I know
a couple weeks before. It was October 9th.
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever.
I remember because I was on with Don Lemon that night and went off on Scotty Nell Hughes, who was another despicable sycophant for Trump that I just dragged her and snatched her soul too. And it's just one of those moments where you always remember where you were when that came out. I was in the parking lot of ShopRite getting ready to buy groceries for dinner. It was a Friday night. And I got the call from CNN saying, "Did you see this? Holy shit, can you come on Don tonight?" And I was like, what? Oh my God. I thought it was over. No, me too. I thought it was over. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just, you know, I think every woman, especially, like, this is why we were crying. It's because we know who he is. He's a predator.
Yes.
We knew what this was going to mean to the rights that we were going to have, that we have to our bodies. We knew what was going to happen. And everybody said that we were hysterical, that we were going overboard, that Roe was settled law. Let me tell you what, it wasn't. And I think anybody with half a brain knew that. And I look at these past 8 years of where we came from and the trajectory of hope and moving forward that we were going in. And we have just taken so many steps back as a country. If anything, I think it united us in a lot of ways. The freedom fighters, the democracy fighters. I mean, look at Tara and I probably never would have met otherwise.
Right. I think we would have been friends if we had met, but it brought us together.
It brought us together. It brought us together. That's for sure.
Yep.
But you know, it's I made sure that I was like, I'm going to turn my life upside down to make sure that this man never sees the inside of the Oval Office again. I don't care what it takes. And that's why my life is what it is now. And I'm happy to, obviously. I mean, I'm a happy, you know, foot soldier here, but God damn it. This man cannot win again.
Right.
She cannot lose.
I know.
Like, and I'm not trying to scare people here, but because
it's so much worse than 2016. It's so much worse than 2016. It's worse than 2020.
He's more popular now than he was then. It blows my mind. It keeps me up at night.
Me too.
Because even if she does win, God, I hope so. Even if she does, this sickness, this cancer that is growing inside this country is not going away.
I know.
And this is a generational fight that we are all going to be in for a very long time. So this is why I tell people, take rest when you can. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But in these moments that we're in now, this is a sprint.
Yeah,
it's all hands on deck.
It is. It really is. And, you know, our motivation for being in this fight may have originated from different places and different, but the common denominator was the same, which is our democracy, and it cannot survive Donald Trump. And, for me, I cried that night too, standing under an Andy Warhol rendition of Ronald Reagan's portrait at the WNBA in Washington, D.C.
That's just terrible.
I was at the RNC party on election night, and that was a whole surreal thing, because I can tell you that it wasn't really a party. There were those establishment Republicans.
Oh yeah, they were probably just like, okay,
we were all resigned to that. Hillary was going to win, and that's fine. You know what? She can win. We'll take her on again in 4 years. We're not going to she's not a threat to democracy, at least. I mean, she's not Donald Trump. So whatever. It'll be a traditional political argument like we always have, right? We'll do it again in 4 years. But when it started to turn and it looked like Trump was going to win, there were people that were like, wait, I'm sorry, what? They were shell-shocked. Yeah. And I left, everybody was shell-shocked. Even the Republicans were shell-shocked. They were not celebrating. I can tell you that right now. And so I was, I stood and I thought I took a picture of me under.
I think you did. I feel like I've seen it.
I need to find it, but I cried too. And I just said, oh my God, what have we done? I mean, I didn't vote for him, but what have we done as a country? And we see where we are. Here we are 8 years later, and holy shit, it's worse than ever. Worse than ever. And not only that, I mean, we have a reckoning to deal with in this country. We need to face the fact that Donald Trump is more popular, and that there are 70+ million people that voted for him last time that may vote for him again this time. That's a lot of people. And now women are facing a future where these men think that we should be second-class citizens, and we're only worth our ability to produce children. Our fertility is the only thing that makes us worth anything. Otherwise, we need to shut up and go cry in the corner. This is such an existential threat, and the fact that it's this close, it
terrifies me.
It does, and it terrifies me too. And but there are aspects of this, and I've said this before. The ground game, the Democrats have an advantage. Republicans used to be very good at this. They're not anymore, because they've outsourced the ground game to Elon Musk and other outside super PACs and things, where the RNC used to be the bread and butter of this, and the Republicans used to be the envy of the Democrats. And then the Democrats in 2008 with Barack Obama, they started to take note. Okay, we're going to do this our way now and modernize it, and they've been improving it ever since. And now it's better than the Republicans, because the Republicans are in disarray because they don't believe in traditional campaigning. It's the Donald Trump show. But I feel good about that. But again, we cannot take this for granted at all. We're talking about Hitler, people. Hitler. Donald Trump is doing a rally on Sunday at Madison Square Garden, where there was a Nazi rally in the 30s in America at Madison Square Garden. You cannot tell me this is by accident. It's not. It's not. It's not. So remember that. When you see Donald Trump on Sunday and all the insane things that he's going to say there, and the language that he's using, and the fact that he even said that he was the father of fertilization, or the father of IVF, or whatever the hell that means. I mean, all of this stuff is nuts. He's going on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's leaning into the bro stuff. And
it's so weird. And again, it feels predatory. Yes. Like, as a woman, with like a normal woman, this feels predatory in a way that I'm having a hard time putting words to it, because let's give an example,
because you think that we're just like freaking out over this. No. Tucker Carlson last night at a rally in Georgia was introducing Donald Trump, and literally compared the American people to children that should be spanked. Now, there are so many things wrong with this, but for me, I know for Michelle, there was the creepiness of all of it too. I get that. I, of course, initially went to, we are a democracy. We are not, we We're not subjects that are lorded over, that need to be disciplined by the king here. They work for us. Okay, we are American citizens. We vote. The democracy is with the people. They work for us. They seem to forget that.
Amen.
Instead, they want to infantilize us and sexualize us in this weird broy way.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like weird.
Daddy's little girl. Just play it. Me telling you does this no justice.
Yeah.
We're going to show our reactions to this because it's infuriating. And
it's another thing I've seen too many times and
oh
still
my God,
sickens me. So here we go.
Infuriating.
No. There has to be a point at which dad comes home. Yeah, that's right. Dad comes home. And he's pissed. Dad is pissed. He's not vengeful. He loves his children. Disobedient as they may be, he loves them. Because they're his children, they live in his house. But he's very disappointed in their behavior. And he's gonna have to let them know. He's gonna have to get to your room right now and think about what you did. And when dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now.
Vigorous?
And no, it's not gonna hurt me more than it hurts you. No, it's not. I'm not gonna lie. This is gonna hurt you a lot more than it hurts me. And you earned this. You're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl.
Is he talking to his dominatrix or the American?
I don't know.
It has to be this way because it's true.
You know,
and you're only going to get better when you take responsibility for what you did. That's not said in the spirit of hate. It's not said in the spirit of vengeance or bigotry. Far from it. It's said in the spirit of justice, which is the purest and best thing there is. And without it,
what is that even like? That's
apart.
So scary. Like just in the name of justice? Like what is that even? Listen.
All of it is. Could you imagine if any Democratic candidate came out to someone introducing them with that story? If Kamala Harris had some person who was a huge media figure on the left talking that way, do you think that they would just shrug? The media would shrug? I mean, it's...
The thing that really just puzzles me about this whole thing is that they are both pearl clutchers.
Yeah.
And, oh, why is it doing that? I need to turn that off of my iOS.
I know.
All the time.
It comes up at the most inappropriate times too.
Always. I'm like telling a sad story and like balloons come up.
Right.
They're pearl clutchers about these things, you know, but at the same time are completely vulgar and like over sexualized and like weird. I mean, he could have been reading from like an unpublished porno script. Like that's how weird it was.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's like very dominatrix talk.
Right.
If anybody watches Billions, I don't know that much about dominatrixes, but it's from like, if you watch the show Billions, there's a plot line with that. So,
well, listen, I mean, we all know, I mean, people who are in the DC world, I think have heard many stories about certain gentlemen who like these things.
Yeah, certain sexual proclivities of these men in power. And, you know, whatever, do you, if you're, you know, as long as it's legal, whatever. But like,
don't come for my rights if you're going to be all like, you hypocrite.
That's right. Did you see the Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who we love, her video where she was like, "Stay away from my snatch"?
Oh wait,
she did a video about
she did like the beep line.
Yes, and it was great. She's phenomenal. But anyway, that kind of shit right there is this is who they are. This is who they are, and yet and
they're telling us
right. And on top of that, Tucker Carlson is a spokesperson for Vladimir Putin. He is a Russian stooge. Even the Canadian Prime Minister.
Yes.
Justin Trudeau. There it is.
Under oath.
Under oath. Yes.
I had the clip. I wanted to play it, but the whole thing's in French, and I was like, we're not going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But he does. I was listening to the translator go through it, and it was just, it was something else.
I didn't realize that Jordan Peterson was Canadian. I didn't know that. Conservative Canadian author Jordan Peterson. I didn't realize he was a Canadian. He's another one of these, like, toxic masculinity bro guys. They're awful, and they're enemies of America.
Yes.
They're in bed with our enemies, literally and figuratively. Like, how much more of this are we going to take? And then you've got JD Vance, who also is in Putin's pocket, and everybody else's, Peter Thiel and the rest of them, who's a heartbeat away from Donald Trump. So we put this out to remind people, because he's on over on News Nation or something with Chris Cuomo, who's also lost it completely, doing a town hall tonight. And they continue to insult women, and they continue to talk about things that are very scary and very anti-democratic and un-American. And JD Vance is 178-year-old cheeseburger heartbeat away if Donald Trump, God forbid, wins from the presidency.
Yep. And I bringing it back to the Peter Thiel thing really quick. I don't think he's a person like the average American. Probably they don't know who he is.
Right.
Think of like Elon Musk, but in the shadows a little bit more.
Right.
And I mean, he has his hand in so many different things. I mean, Blake Masters was essentially, I don't know if you remember him, he ran for Senate in Arizona against Mark Kelly, I think was the opponent, right?
Yeah.
And he was saying all kinds of stuff about how like our generals are woke and pansies and all that kind of stuff. And he comes from Peter Thiel world, and he was kind of like a butler for him or something like that. And JD Vance also, I mean, he worked for him, or he like Peter Thiel had set him up with some kind of job, and then like that didn't work out. So he gave money for him to start his own company. So he did that, and that didn't really work out. Yeah, like billions of dollars, and like that didn't really work out. So he's like, okay.
And then he financed his Senate campaign.
Yes,
$10 million. I mean, he's bought and paid for. And paid for.
Yes.
And I think we have Heartbeat. We should play it.
Yes, we do. Sorry, it was loading, so I was like trying to talk through.
Oh, that's okay. Nice cover.
Yep, here we go.
If elected, Trump would be the oldest president ever inaugurated, but his campaign still refuses to release his detailed medical records.
What's he hiding? A heartbeat away from him is JD Vance.
Quite literally one heartbeat away from the presidency.
Trump is not a fit guy.
Heartbeat away from the presidency.
This man is not well.
Heartbeat away.
78 years old.
I will very quickly deflate defeat.
He may not make it.
The vice president becomes the president. Automatically.
What did we learn about what the Vance presidency would be like?
Roe versus Wade is an abomination.
He said rape is inconvenient.
Two wrongs don't make a right. Childless cat lady.
Project 2025. It's a 900-page document. I guarantee there are things that Trump likes.
I'm very happy with the JD pick. Think of him as a member version of what we do.
Kevin Roberts is a friend of mine.
Bloodless, if the left allows it to be.
What an amazing coup this would be for Peter Thiel.
You've benefited from your friendship with Peter Thiel.
Sure.
$15 million.
Do the people who fund your campaigns actually share your values?
He's palling around with people who are skeptical of the 19th Amendment.
If you got women to have more children.
JD Vance wants to allow the tracking of women's menstrual cycles.
You have people using abortion basically as another form of birth control.
Trump refuses to release even the most basic information about his health.
This was just 10 days ago where Trump was refusing to release his health records again. And
again, how was that only 10?
Right. That was only 10 days ago, I think, about, maybe 2 weeks now. Still, like, I remember when that was a huge thing. The health records and tax returns. That's gone. Nobody gives a shit anymore. Who cares? No, nobody cares. It doesn't matter that Trump's running around with like crypto bros and trying to make money off of crypto schemes and making money with the Saudis and whatever the hell else he's doing over there. I mean, or that he gave PPE to Putin during COVID while Americans were dying. Like all of this came out in October.
Yeah. And like none of it mattered.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, when he said
Kamala Harris, the race is closer. She's got her favorables and unfavorables are underwater. Like what?
I don't understand.
I know. I'm just saying, folks. Like this is where we're at. This is where we are at right now.
Well, this is just sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say there's another part of this that's, again, should be like the biggest story in the history of politics, is that Donald Trump's vice president from last time is not on the ticket this time because he tried to have him killed.
Yes. And didn't care, which, by the way,
and said maybe he deserved it.
Right. Also came out this month in the Jack Smith document dump earlier this month. It reconfirmed all of this in legal documents for the January 6th case. And Donald Trump this week, or I think it was this morning, actually, this week. It feels like a week ago. It was only this morning. Was on Hugh Hewitt's show talking about he'll fire Jack Smith within 2 seconds if he wins, so that it all goes away. Well, of course, that's what he's running for. He's running to stay out of jail.
Yeah. And that's a scary thing because people, I mean, desperation on that kind of level at that age, with a crazy person who's already like not there. And, the worst parts of humanity all exist inside this man's body. I mean, that's pretty terrifying.
Yes. But there is some good news here. I don't want it to all be doom and gloom. I mean, doom and gloom is important because it's real right now. Like, we're not making it up. It's real. But the early voting that's happening, my state early voting started a couple weeks ago. My husband and I make a plan, and we're going to go next week to go early vote. And 28 million people have already voted and counting. It's still because more and more states are opening up early voting. And 55% of the early vote in Georgia, women. 53% of the early vote in Michigan, women. I suspect that the 2016 effect of the silent majority that was in Trump's favor in 2016, I suspect that is going to be the opposite. It will be for Kamala Harris in 2024 because so many women and Republicans who don't want to put a Kamala Harris flag or yard sign in their yard, and that's fine. I have one. I have a big Kamala Harris flag in my yard that says Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, for the people. It has a cat looking over it. It's a big flag. And I have my little Cats for Kamala flag there in honor of the Teekster.
Oh, Tiki.
But, I'm okay with that. I don't care what people think. But there are a lot of people who care what people think, and they have to live with their neighbors and their husbands.
And people are afraid too.
Afraid, which is insane too, because by the way, threats against election officials are up 38%. Election officials across the country, the Brennan Center did a report on this. They are fortifying locations. They are training people in action plans. They're installing panic buttons in election locations. And 80% of election workers and election officials are women. So this is so much bigger what they're doing. They're trying to be like domestic terrorists against people in the election integrity space. This is what MAGA does.
Exactly. And I saw just earlier today that there's a story out of Phoenix.
The mailbox.
Somebody set fire to a mailbox in Phoenix once they put the fire out and pulled it out, it was all ballots that were in there. It was about 20 ballots. I listen.
Starting already.
I don't want to say, oh God, there's going to be more of this. I hope there isn't. But I do think that this is certainly setting a trend and normalizing something that should never be happening in a healthy democracy.
No,
not ever. Not ever.
And there's one person responsible for this, and that's Donald Trump. The fact that Donald Trump has sowed all of this dissension and the questioning conspiracy theories and all this bullshit about our election integrity. This is all MAGA. Donald Trump and MAGA spreading the big lie that now a cornerstone of our democracy has been questioned because of a lie. It's an absolute lie. And what are they going to do? I worry that they're not going to accept the results, and they're already starting with this. They're already starting. And so what happens then when half the country, and even more so, from last time, like it's something like 85% of Republicans don't believe that Joe Biden's a legitimate president.
It's so crazy.
How do you have a functioning party with that? How? JD Vance won't say that he won, that he lost, right? I mean,
no, he won't say it. He won't say it. And there's First of all, Kamala Harris, I don't know exactly. I think it's going to be next Tuesday. She's going to do a speech from the exact place that Donald Trump spoke on January 6th.
On the ellipse.
And she is going to speak about democracy and what's at stake. And I think that that's a really smart thing to do, because I think in this final stretch, I think all these issues that we care about kind of all come to the same thing.
Yep.
They're all in danger because of the threat to democracy. And I think that making that the pillar of this final stretch, I think is smart. And I also think it just happens to be true. So,
she's getting criticism for this. Even
I think that's bullshit.
There are some Democrats that are saying like that, Biden was going to run on this, and it's not.
No, that's bullshit. Sorry.
Because people are worried about the economy and the cost of goods, and it's not breaking through. And democracy is just this esoteric concept that doesn't pay.
People are smarter than that. Like, come on, man.
I agree. She can do both. You can have both messages, because you know what? You're not going to be able to have a capitalist system. And if you're in a union and, Donald Trump wants to destroy you and the tariffs
anymore.
Right, and then the tariffs are going to crash the economy and all those things. None of that is going to matter if you don't have a democracy. The system doesn't function unless the constitutional republic / democracy that we have functions. Right. So it is smart of her, because this is not a policy election. I don't care what anybody says. She put out her economic plan. They put out that the economists are saying, and
they complain that she doesn't
crash the economy. Right. But it's still not good enough.
It's crazy.
And the economy is doing better. Inflation is almost down to the target of 2% up from 9%. But nobody knows this because the way the media is framing things. And frankly, Biden did not take the victory laps that he should have. They should have been out there constantly taking credit every time there was a benchmark that was good for the economy.
Yes.
Telling people this is good. We acknowledge that certain lagging indicators like gas prices and inflation are still behind, but we're working on it. Look what else we've achieved. Look at the stock market. Look at your 401ks. Look at the manufacturing jobs that we've brought back. Look at all of this economic growth that we've had. Look at the fact that we're the number 1 energy producers in the world. Look at all of the things that we fixed that Donald Trump, frankly, broke. But they didn't do that. And that comes from kind of the humble public servant thing. And they don't like self-aggrandizement. But in this day and age where you have to
show
do that, because people have short attention spans. Nobody's watching the nightly news and reading newspapers anymore. It's all in sound bites on your phone or watching shows like this. They get it in snippets. So you have to constantly tell people, spoon feed it to them. And they didn't do that, and it's costing them now.
I was of the party of put up a billboard next to every, Build Back Better project that was happening all over the country. Put up a billboard that says Joe Biden did this.
Trump did it.
Right. This is why I'm like,
the stimulus checks and all of that. They delayed the stimulus
even though
checks.
it was Congress, it was a Democrat.
Right.
I mean,
but Trump was like, you have to give him credit. He knows how to market.
Oh yeah,
all con men do.
Barnum.
That's why they're good. That's why they're good at that.
He's P.T. Barnum. But I did want to play
Barnum. Remind me about the Hugh Jackman Sutton Foster news that came out today. A little theater thing, if for those who know. But anyway,
I have thoughts, but I'm not going to share them publicly.
I saw them together in Music Man. Anyway, this is what con men, and so is he. This is what con men do, and this is why he's even close. This is why. And so it's very frustrating because it's all an illusion and it's bullshit. And people are voting against their own interests. And our democracy is on the line. So,
and I just want to say again to like the talk about infantilizing people. I think that's kind of what the media and even like the pundit class and the consultant class is kind of putting regular Americans in this little box that's like, you're stupid, you're not going to get this. I just want to show this clip from the Univision Town Hall where this man said that
Jersey, he's from Jersey. He lives in Florida now, but he's a good Jersey guy.
We love a Jersey guy.
Yes.
And he asks, how are you going to win back my vote? Because January 6th was something that really bothered him. And you see the looks on everybody's faces. It's just, we're just going to watch that.
Good evening, Mr. Trump. Okay. I am a Republican, no longer registered, though. I want to give you the opportunity to try to win back my vote. Okay. Your, let me say, action and maybe inaction during your presidency and the last few years sort of, was a little disturbing to me. What happened during January 6th and the fact that, you waited so long to take action while your supporters were attacking the Capitol. Coronavirus, I thought the public was misled during coronavirus, and that many more lives could have been saved if we would have been informed better. And also people in your administration who don't support you. I'm curious how people so close to you and your administration no longer want to support you, so why would I want to support you? If you would answer these questions for me, I would really appreciate it and give you the opportunity. There's, your own vice president doesn't want to support you now.
Thank you, Ramiro.
So the people that don't support a very small portion, we have a tremendous, about 97% of the people in the administration support me. But because it's me, somebody doesn't support, they get a little publicity. The vice president, I disagree with him on what he did. I totally disagreed with him on what he did. Very importantly, you had hundreds of thousands of people come to Washington. They didn't come because of me. They came because of the election. They thought the election was a rigged election, and that's why they came. Some of those people went down to the Capitol. I said peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have guns. The others had guns, but we didn't have guns. And when I say we, these are people that walked down. This was a tiny percentage of the overall, which nobody sees and nobody shows. But that was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds of thousands. It could have been the largest group I've ever spoken before. They asked me to speak. I went and I spoke, and I used the term peacefully and patriotically. If you look at the Democrats, what they say, you look at Maxine Waters and you look at Hillary Clinton and you look at what they say, and they don't put that on. They only put Republicans on. But they couldn't get me because of the fact that I said everything's got to be peaceful and patriotic. And we'll see how it all works out. But I think that we're right now in another election. All I want is honest elections. I'm willing to take any chance. I want honest elections.
I just want to describe to people who are listening, because we have now turned the stakes into a podcast. So you can spread the word, folks. So like and subscribe on Apple and wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can now listen to the stakes on the podcast. The faces of the participants in this town hall they were so like, are you freaking kidding me? What are you talking about? The guy who asked the question was like, what? There was a woman in the audience who visibly like looked shocked, like, what are you talking about? That nobody died that day. I mean, it is just insane. And yet people just, I don't understand it. They just excuse, well, let's just Trump. You want to talk about word salads. My God, I get like the guy can't put a sentence together. He can't keep a thought straight. Like it's not the competency level. However you feel about Kamala Harris's policies, there is no comparison. This is why he keeps trying to call her stupid and dumb and unintelligent, because he is. Yep. He's all the things.
Always projection.
He is always. He also made a comment. I think we have this too, that he called her what he called her as vice president. It was another vile thing. That he said during his rally, which just furthers the violence that is the undertone of violence, trying to dehumanize her all the time. There's a certain vitriol in the way, because she's a woman and a woman of color. And we already know how Donald Trump feels about women, particularly women of color. So this is what he said.
So you have to tell Kamala Harris that you've had enough, that you just can't take it anymore. We can't stand you. You're a shit vice president. The worst. You're the worst vice president. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're fired. Get out of here. Get the hell out of here, Kamala.
Could you imagine if Kamala Harris said that about Donald Trump? They're pearl clutching because she said the quote F word last night by acknowledging that he's a fascist, repeating what his chief of staff and former Joint Chiefs and the generals said about him being a classic fascist. But the New York Times headline was Kamala Harris used the F word. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is out here calling her a shit vice president and insulting her intelligence and talking about people eating cats and dogs and vermin and all of these things. And you know, but there's this false equivalency. Mm-hmm. I just can't. It's too much. It's too much. So we're 12 days away. We are 12 days away.
I just want to say, speaking of the F word.
Yeah. Which I use a lot, I admit, but
yeah,
I'm not running for president, and I'm from New Jersey.
I want to talk about this for a second.
Yes, thank you. Just for those who are listening, the headline is Trump was enraged by funeral cost for effing Mexican. Talking about a U.S. soldier, woman, who was a Mexican American. She was killed brutally. I believe it was at Fort Hood by another soldier. So. Mm-hmm. And when he was running in 2020, he one of these other, bullshit promises he made to just try to win over voters, to act like he actually cares about the military when we know he doesn't. He promised to pay for the funeral. That was in April.
Publicly on camera.
Right. That's right. And then in December of 2020, according to contemporaneous notes, and this was in Rolling Stone, and also interviews by The Atlantic, who wrote one of the epic stories about the fascism and John Kelly. Mm-hmm. They said, when informed that the total cost amounts to $60,000 for the funeral, Trump was incensed. Quote, "It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican," he reportedly told then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. "Don't pay for it." Trump repeatedly complained later in the day that these, quote, fucking people are trying to rip me off, end quote. This would end anyone else's presidency, anyone else's candidacy. End it. How many examples do we need of Donald Trump disrespecting our military? How many? I want to make commander-in-chief so bad, Michelle.
I know. So do I. So do I. Well, and I want to bridge that into the Hitler conversation, because I think it all kind of goes together. It's like, why can't my generals be like Hitler's generals? Jeez. I will say that the pathway to taking back the House runs through the state of New York. Mm-hmm. And there was a redistricting kind of mishap that happened. The Democrats totally effed that up, in my opinion. But they've kind of rewritten the lines now. And so they're a little bit different in a few places. John Avlon is running in New York's first congressional district. A friend of mine actually is running his campaign, so I've been getting all the updates. And if you don't know him, he was on CNN. He used to be a Republican. He's running as a Democrat. He's a very sensible, moderate guy.
And married to Margaret Hoover, who is of the Herbert Hoover family.
Yes. And that first congressional district, if you don't know, it's all the way east on Long Island. So it's like Hamptons, it's Montauk, it's all that. It's like far out. There was a debate last night, and his opponent did the most MAGA thing that they're all doing. They can't talk about it. They can't acknowledge it. They can't admit it. And in my opinion, John cleaned his clock. So I just want to show this clip real quick.
But while we're talking about the state of Israel and the purpose for the state of Israel, I couldn't help but notice that my opponent's chosen political candidate, the one he enthusiastically endorsed, told his chief of staff, General John Kelly, that he admired Hitler, said he did a lot of good things, said he wanted generals like the ones Hitler had. That seems pretty urgent. That seems pretty relevant to the choices facing our nation and to the judgment my opponent observes, because that kind of slander and slur to a man responsible for the murder of 6 million Jews and hundreds of millions around the world should not enter anywhere near the Oval Office, and that's from the mouth of his own general and chief of staff. That's about weakness. We need strength to oppose that as a united nation.
That has not been confirmed. The campaign has denied that.
It's interesting, because what you're saying is you take Donald Trump's word over Marine General John Kelly. You at home, does that sound credible to you? Or does that sound like desperate deflection? Here's the facts. We do need to be strong. Weakness does invite aggression. I have condemned illiberalism wherever we see it, on the far left or the far right, especially the far left, because it's up to people to police their own party's extremes, something my opponent has consistently failed to do. That's how we reunite as a nation. That's how we move forward together. And I got no time for anyone who protests and turns it into a riot. That is an absolute condemnation, and I've done it consistently, and I will in Congress.
Listen, I know John Avlon. We were colleagues at CNN. He is very good on TV. He is really smart. He's a great journalist, and he's bringing those skills to this campaign. And he loves this country. He's a former Republican.
Yeah,
he was a Republican, and so was his wife. I know Margaret. They were more liberal Republicans, but she hosts Firing Line on PBS. Margaret's great, and they were kind of like the modern day Carville, Mary Madeline a little bit. But he's going to be a great congressman, and I hope that the people of the first district do the right thing.
If somebody can win that district, because listen, it is purpley red out in Long Island. But if anybody can do it, I think it's him.
It's Lee Zeldin's old district, right?
Yes,
Lee Zeldin,
yes,
who turned MAGA and ran for governor and all of that and lost.
Yeah, like I was like, good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah, and he's again, all these guys, they go out there and they try to deflect and defend this stuff and poo-poo it. I mean, on Fox News, they were trying to say, oh, he didn't really mean it. Oh, he wasn't talking about that. Oh, I mean, it is infuriating, the gaslighting that they're trying to apply to this. And I wish there were more candidates like John Avlon that could prosecute the case as well as he has, because they have no answer. You saw it. They have
like,
no answer.
Yeah. They're all like, and won't even look at him.
No,
I mean, that's the guilt. That's the guilt.
Because they know. And that makes it even worse. And speaking of that, Nikki Haley tonight was on Twitter talking about her endorsement for Donald Trump and why she's voting for him. And she's voting for him because of the future and for the kids. I just want to tell Nikki Haley to have several seats. Shut up. You are the problem.
Talk about military too.
Right. She's got a military husband that Donald Trump disparaged her, called her a bird brain, did all of that. These people are political sadists. They are sadists. And she is part of the problem. She's a microcosm of exactly why the Republican Party has been taken over by Trump and MAGA, because of cowardice and political opportunism. And shame on her. She is a disgrace and should be embarrassed. And I hope they shame her out of politics, because she is a disgrace. What
go
an
do your
embarrassment,
radio show and go away. That's how I feel.
Good God.
And I just, Tara, there are days that I feel bad. There are days that I feel hopeful. I feel a little crazy.
Like all of us.
I think we all do. There's the great thing about hosting our own show here is that we can kind of do whatever we want.
Yes.
But there's just two things I just want to touch very briefly on before we go. One of them is the story out of the LA Times.
Oh my God, yes.
The LA Times editorial chief quit after the owner of the newspaper blocked the endorsement of Kamala Harris. Her name is Mario Garza, and she was prepared to put the endorsement out. And I don't know how to say it. It's Patrick Soon-Shiong.
Yeah.
He is a billionaire from South Africa. Funny. And decided not to make the endorsement in the presidential race. And, he's denying it now. And he's like, oh, I didn't do that. Blah, blah, blah. But, she did an interview with the Columbia Journalism Review. And she said that she had quit because, quote, I want to make it clear that I am not okay with us being silent. In dangerous times, honest people need to stand up. This is how I'm standing up.
Good
and
for
I
her.
just want to say,
a woman
again having to do this,
had enough and standing up.
The courage that it takes to stand up to people who are your bosses, who are more powerful than you, especially if you are a woman in a male-dominated space, or even a male-dominated world in a lot of ways. The amount of courage that it takes to do this, I cannot even begin to tell you.
Well, believe me, for people need to know, like, we've lived this.
Yes.
We understand it. And
Yes.
a lot of women understand that. It's not easy to do, but
No.
sometimes it's necessary. When you see things that are not right and against your principles, you have to stand up because silence is complicity. And
Yes.
we're not going to do that. We are
Right.
not going to do that. And, George Orwell said, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's a quote that I have on my email signature. It's a quote I have on cards. There's a question whether Orwell actually said that or not, but we're going to keep attributing it to Orwell until they prove it wasn't. But that is really what this is. We are in a time of universal deceit. And it takes a lot of courage to stand up and speak out and do what's right. And sometimes it comes at great cost.
And risk your job. I mean, she walked away from her job. I mean, that takes a lot.
Her safety. I mean, the threats are real out here, especially against journalists. Trump again, doubling down on the enemy of the people. The enemy within is anyone who's against him, and the enemy of the people is the press. He's back doing this again, and that it says a lot. And just so that people understand, it is common practice for newspaper editorial boards to take a position. That's why they're editorial boards. It's separate from the news division.
Right.
When I was a communications director in Capitol Hill, we would take the candidate to the local newspapers in the district and sit down with the editorial board because they would make recommendations and write things about the candidates running. And it was back in the day, those endorsements were coveted. It was important. People cared because those were trusted sources for folks. And so nowadays things are kind of all turned upside down, but it's still a tradition. It's still not something that is out of the ordinary for a newspaper, especially a major one like the LA Times, to take an editorial board position. So good for her. Good for her.
I think it's great. I think, in the spirit of truth telling, I was at the Edward Murrow Awards last week with my lovely friends from Longlead. They invited me. It was very nice.
And you looked fabulous, by the way. Go check out Michelle's Instagram. You can see she was fancy last week in her dress.
Thank you. I know I got to wear a dress. But we were sitting next to the ProPublica table. And I was kind of geeking out because I love them.
Me too.
In my opinion, I think that they are one of the last news outlets, group of journalists that are doing the real work. And they're not beholden to any corporate interests or CEOs or anything like that. They are telling the stories. And it sometimes takes them months, if not years, to do this research.
Yep.
There's a journalist named Corey Johnson. I hope you'll look him up at Corey G. Johnson on Twitter. He's a writer for ProPublica, and he put together a story that, again, would have been a big story, but it is, I mean, because I follow this guy on Twitter is how I saw it. John Scott Relton knew, if you're listening, I will read this. U.S. gun industry covertly created and shared secret national database of gun owners. A large cache even went to Cambridge Analytica, if you remember that name. Just wild, given how many these firms perform caring about privacy. Included are Glock Inc., Smith & Wesson, Remington Arms, Marlin, and Mossberg Corp. by Corey G. Johnson. So I just want to say, if you remember Cambridge Analytica and how they were all up in the 2016 election with the Russian bots and all of the data collection.
Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, the Mercer family, they were all, this was a very insidious operation that micro-targeted and got people's information, data mining, and using it to micro-target with algorithms and all these things. And Facebook was a major purveyor of this. It exposed a lot of that. And I actually didn't realize that Cambridge Analytica was still around. But
I didn't either. And that's what, when I saw this and I told Tara about it, she's like, wait, but that was before. I'm like, no, this story published this morning.
Yeah.
So it says in the late in the late 1990s, the gun industry launched a secret project. The story behind the data sharing and its impact has never been revealed until now. For years, America's most iconic gun makers turned over sensitive personal information on hundreds of thousands of customers to political operatives. So they were sharing all kinds of data on gun owners. Okay, that is
without their consent or knowledge.
Without their consent, having to do with what they watch on TV, their psychological state, their religion, political views, down to the style of underwear that these people buy. Okay,
insane.
Which ties it all into this. What we were talking about earlier, to bring it full circle, is that we're in these echo chambers that the internet and the algorithms are sending us out. And where do they get this information, data like this that's collected and sold to companies?
Yep, it's big money.
Our data is actually the most valuable commodity that we will ever have.
That's correct.
And the way that it's bought and sold around the world. And
that's a whole other discussion about,
I know, whole nother day,
violation of privacy and the fact that they
Yeah.
can track everything we do. We've sold it out. You can forget about having ever having privacy again, given what we have on our phones and what they can do. It's worse than ever.
Keeps me up at
I
night.
know.
But at the end of the day, I mean, this is how people become radicalized, and this is how it's happening, is these like echo chambers that are happening, and you get into these realities, like the thing with Ruth, right? This whole part of right-wing media that people get sucked up into and down a rabbit hole. How do you get there? Through, something gets suggested to you, sent to you, something like that.
Yep. Information manipulation. The Russians are very good at this. Just read the Mueller report. I always refer to that because that was really where it all started, that we uncovered this and it became public of how sophisticated that effort was. And now the Chinese and Iranians are onto it. This is why we don't have TikTok. I know everyone that has, Gen Z kids, and, everyone loves TikTok to do the dances and all goofy shit on TikTok. Meanwhile, the Chinese government is data mining all your information and using it for nefarious purposes.
And psychologically, I mean, they're really taking a very deep dive into the psyche of the American public and how to tap into that and control it.
Yes, they don't do that in the Chinese version of TikTok. They show things over and over of engineers and science and, that kind of stuff. But you see the dumb shit people push on TikTok here. They're not stupid. They see the power of that, that manipulation with information, and it's working, which is the scary part about this. Like, we're not even allowed to have TikTok on a phone, in a device in our household because of my husband being a federal agent. It's deemed a national security risk.
Listen, I have very mixed feelings, most negative about TikTok. I have an account. It's kind of one of those.
And Seneca has an account because we have to communicate, right?
Exactly. We have to go where the people
we don't
are,
have it.
And
our comms team has it.
Yes, exactly. And so to that point, I think these are all things we have to continue to think about. I hope that you'll go follow ProPublica if you don't already. Give them $5 or something if you'd like. I mean, they do take donations to do their work. It is so crucial to our democracy that these stories and the truth continues to be told. These are the same people who've been telling the stories about Justice Thomas on the Supreme Court, and Harlan Crow, who's the big donor and like the lavish gift giver.
Leonard Leo and his Supreme Court for 30 years financing, getting the Federalist judges there, and what ultimately led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, ProPublica, all of that, Panama Papers, and all kinds of things. They do amazing work. So we're grateful for what they do.
They're just
for democracy.
Amazing. Exactly. And so, I say all that with, as women, there's so much at stake for us. And we went a little long today because we didn't have a show last week. So we had more to talk about.
Yeah, we're catching up.
But, the Seneca Project, we are a bipartisan organization. Okay. We have registered Republicans that are on our advisory board. We have Denver Riggleman, who is a conservative. We have Tara, who's on the conservative side. We have me, who's a Democrat, Senator Boxer. I mean, there's so many of us that kind of come from different places and can bring our unique perspectives into this work. And I think it's so important. And this is not a new thing. I mean, I was looking back this week into the ERA struggle back in the 70s, and how Jill Ricklehouse, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but she was like the one Republican kind of that worked for the Nixon administration and was trying to help all the other women because she was trying to save the Republican Party from the religious Reaganites that she thought were taking over. Which really led to the death of the ERA. The Phyllis Schlafly thing is a whole nother story. But
on your birthday, right?
On my birthday, on the day that I was born and the day that I came into this world, the ERA died.
Well,
and here we are. So
but maybe you were born to help get it passed and resurrected. You just never know. And when we went to visit Seneca Falls, we stood there right in the spot where Alice Paul first introduced the ERA back in whatever year that was, very long time
on
ago.
the 20-year anniversary or something like that.
Yeah.
So we will not go back.
That's right. It all comes full circle. We're not going back, folks. We're not going back. And everybody, if you haven't voted yet, please go out and vote. Make a plan. Tell your family and friends. Like and subscribe for our stuff, please, so that we can continue doing this work. If you haven't donated, every little bit counts. We appreciate you if you already have. And we've got 12 days to go. Next week will be the last show before the election. And it's just, I cannot believe we're on the precipice here. But together we can win and join the fight, and we won't go back. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, we will. Take care, everybody.
In July 1848, courageous women came together in Seneca Falls, New York, to start a movement. They dared to fight against treatment as second-class citizens. After decades of struggle, women fought and won the right to vote, to work without discrimination, to control our bodies, to even open bank accounts without the permission of a man. Each one was a triumph against those who believed we didn't deserve them. Well, today, those hard-fought victories are under attack. Donald Trump and his allies are determined to send us back to a time when we had no say, no freedom, no choice.
I got rid of Roe v. Wade.
Do we want a future where our daughters have fewer rights than our grandmothers? Where their bodies are state property? Their voices silenced? Their opportunities erased? We say hell no. We won't go back. This November, we must take back what is ours. For ourselves, for our daughters, and for the pioneers of Seneca Falls. It's up to us.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? There has to be some form of punishment.
From the 6 a.m. practice to the away game pickup, from her first goal to the state finals, from the big wins to the big lessons, we take care of all the little things. We do these little things so our daughters can achieve big things. We do all of this for their future. And this fall, that future is on the line. We have come so far, but we have one big thing left to do for our daughters. Their rights are on the ballot, and we won't go back. Not now. Not ever. This fall, we will go for the gold, and we must win for them.
The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and ended a woman's constitutional right to an abortion.
We trust women.
There's a threat facing women in America that transcends party lines.
My country doesn't care about me.
And it's time we ask ourselves, do we still value the freedoms we have fought so hard for?
We should all have the care that we need.
This election is a choice, and it is a time for choosing. We're told we have to choose between left or right, but we know what the real choice is. It's a choice between our freedom or their control, between our right to determine our own destinies or Donald Trump. So seriously, America, what the hell are we doing? We can't sit on the sidelines while women in America suffer and die because a right we once had has now been criminalized. If we don't make the right choice, there's no state to escape to. There's no going back. Choosing who will shape our future is a right we still have left. For now. And that choice is up to us.
It wasn't easy getting here. The loss, the heartbreak. My wife is tough, resilient. She said, we'll just keep trying. I didn't know much about IVF until we needed it. There were moments when all hope felt lost. But we finally got our miracle. From the moment I held her, I vowed to protect her. If it were up to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, our little girl wouldn't even exist. They don't care about the joys, the sacrifices. They only care about their control over our lives and her future. Who the hell are they to tell us how or when we become moms and dads? We know what's best for our families. It's time to stand together, not with any party, but as parents. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get that. That's why this fall, I'm voting for her. I'm voting for hope.
This election, it will come down to the women turning out in the battleground states.
We know that when women show up, we win.
We've got one job to do. We have got to beat Donald Trump and elect the first woman president of the United States.
We have work to do. We have doors to knock on. We have people to talk to. We have phone calls to make. And we have an election to win.
It is a brand new race.
It's a moment that I feel like people are energized.
Kamala Harris is bringing that energy.
Women are fed up. This is their lives. This is their body on the line.
Birth control is at stake. I cannot vote for a man who rolls back women's reproductive rights.
If Trump gets the chance, he will sign a national abortion ban, but we are not going to let that happen.
Abortion advocates are going to come out even harder for her because they know that she has been their champion in the White House.
The government should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
It was Kamala Harris that was cross-examining the very nominees that became the justices that overturned Roe v. Wade.
Vice President Harris, former prosecutor. Donald Trump, convicted felon.
I will proudly put my record against his.
She has overcome and overperformed and been underestimated at every turn of her career.
She's broken and smashed glass ceiling after glass ceiling.
And for all of those people asking, you know, is this country ready for a woman president? Is this country ready for a black woman president? Well, you better get ready because Madame Vice President is coming your way.
The choice is in Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
Her pick is Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
He's affable, he's likable.
He's joyful.
He is a veteran, a hunter, a father.
He is a football coach.
He's a former high school teacher.
This is not a coastal elite guy.
He won in rural Minnesota over and over and over again.
They see people less fortunate as scapegoats and punchlines for their jokes. We see them as neighbors. You have my pledge. As long as I am governor, IVF will continue to be a lifeline of hope for families just like mine. Thank God for IVF. My wife and I have 2 beautiful children.
With Tim on our side, we're unstoppable.
One of the most productive governors.
Minnesota today codified abortion rights.
He cut taxes for working families.
Passed universal background checks on guns.
We have universal breakfast and lunches for our children, all the children.
What a monster. Kids are eating and having full bellies so they can go learn, and women are making their own health care decisions. This is preaching to the choir, but the choir needs to sing.